Welcome back to Flipping Pages, Stirring Sauces. Um, Earlier, I had talked about the fact that people get their back up against the wall when spirituality or being being in a state of spiritual enlightenment is mentioned, and I will speak about spirituality in the future. However, this is the last time that I will be addressing people getting their backs up when it comes to us talking about spirituality and walking in the spirit. Um, the Creator is a spiritual being, and the Creator demands that we walk in spirituality. And as I said before, the purpose of the human body is to reconnect us with the Creator. And I have come to the conclusion that you cannot negotiate and you cannot debate with ignorance. And so I am going to leave it at that with these superstitious people who do not understand what spirituality is all about. It's very tough trying to educate someone when they are grounded in their ignorance and can't see a way out of that ignorance. So, once again, welcome to Flipping Pages and Stirring Sauces, a topic or a title derived from my love affair with cooking, baking, reading, writing, and being a mother. We left off last time on chapter 9, and we're going to pick it up at chapter 10. Chapter 10 is a very, very, very short chapter, and the title of chapter 10 is Love, a Love of the Forbidden Sort. Now, the book I'm reading is called Spiritual Messages Channeled Through Me, written by my sister Denise, who has given me written authorization to present it here on this platform in its entirety. So, gonna move ahead with the reading now. They are happy. A kind of happiness she could not have imagined, as she lay in the belly of the ship that brought her to this part of the world. A happiness she never thought possible, with a being who is in part responsible for her captivity. He too enjoys a happiness with a family he never imagined. Moreover, a family of a different hue. When they are together, which is almost always, it is as though they do not notice each other's color. He does not give her a ring to cement their relationship, but thereby the stream where they enjoy the company of each other and where the children take a nap in the cool of the day, he embraces her and pledges his undying love to her. No priest would ever marry us, but I don't need anybody to convince me that you are my wife. Do you accept me as your husband? And sometimes it's just as simple as that. That is how our people did it originally. There was no big wedding ceremony with a priest. A bride was given, bride was accepted, that giving was consummated, and thereafter they were husband and wife. Simple. Yes, I do, I do. Smiling, he looks down at the sleeping children. then looks up at her as he beams with joy. You realize this makes me the father of the children, don't you? Of course, he's not telling her something they both do not already know, and nothing the children do not already know. It is this verbal acknowledgement and her smile of acceptance that they seal with a particularly warm embrace and kisses that bond two people in that unique way. The threat of severe sanctions for teaching slaves literacy in reading, writing, and arithmetic does have the desired effect on the two, at least not enough of an effect to hinder their teaching and learning. It is easy for Ventise to learn because she's highly educated in her native tongue, more educated than he. Her training by Beruze, therefore, is really about his culture and her perspective on it. That is his local dialect and names for objects new to her. She also knows enough of her own history to know that the use of mathematics and physics principles she had studied for many years before her enslavement originated with her people in her homeland. Forget about what the history books say. These are the facts. Although he will likely never use the scientific principles she teaches him, he pays close attention because he is so intrigued by her intellect. He teaches the not quite 3-year-old children in English. She teaches them in the same things in her native language. Beruze gets pleasure out of watching the children learn. The more they learn, the more he wants to teach them. He is aware that an education in formal literacy will not change their situation in life. Nonetheless, he has a strong belief that education frees the mind. If nothing else, it will help them to better understand their environment when he is no longer around to protect them. He teaches the children the word secret and its definition before, during, and after he teaches them anything in the literary sense. He reminds them of the need to keep what they learn a family secret, while often spontaneously testing them on its definition and application. Even though Beruze has given his brother a second advance, buying Ventise an additional 6 months out of his grasp, it forever nags at him that his brother can interfere with their happiness at any time. Her prepaid field labor expires in less than a month. He watches her as she goes about her work in the cabin. If I cannot get Brondez to sell me the trio outright, I will prepay her labor for the next 3 years. He did not put up much of a fuss when I gave him the additional payment. Perhaps he will let me pay him to leave us alone entirely. Perhaps. To give himself more than enough lead time, he plans to approach Brondez sometime this week. He will enjoy the weekend with his family, picnicking by the river, teaching the twins how to swim, alternating reading paragraphs and passages in English with Ventise, making peach preserves with Ventise, and on Monday he will pay Brondez another visit. She knows they live in a tenuous paradise, but knowing no other safe place on earth, she appreciates her happiness as if each day is the last she will experience. She does not contemplate a fight for a change in the overall system. Her world is too small, and the problems of racial hatred too overwhelming for the fight against slavery to be her fight. This is one of the spirit guides, one of my sister's spirit guides speaking. His name is Durrani, and Durrani speaks. The fight to end the buying and selling, the owning of human flesh covered in black skin, is in its infancy right now. It is in the spiritual realm. The foundation is being set to take it out of the spiritual world and bring it into the physical world. She has done her part by being mother to the twins, being the door through which they entered into this world. As for me, I hesitate to get to the next chapter in her life, to take her out of her world of happiness, because as a channeler, I live each emotion about which I write. I hesitate to throw her into the heart of slavery, because although never being in physical chains myself as a descendant of slaves, I am forever socially and psychologically locked in the chains of slavery. I feel horror looming over her life. And that last paragraph was Denise, the writer, speaking. Um, and I can confirm that when I'm in pain, she feels my pain. I can speak to her and she can tell me which part of her body is hurting, which part of my body is hurting, because she's hurting in the same spot. Um, in a way, I consider myself lucky that I was not blessed with that aspect of spirituality, because the pain she feels for others is very genuine and sometimes very disabling. I've watched, well, I've not physically watched her, but I've heard her go through the pain of someone who was being hurt. But anyway, let's get back to the reading. It is not yet dark. They are settled in for the evening. The household brims with affection in a game of guess who. Many peanuts I have taken from the bowl. Oh, and it is not yet dark. They are settled in for the evening. The household brims with affection in a game of guess how many peanuts I have taken from the bowl. The parents teach the children how to add and subtract, with everyone being served a portion of whatever number of peanuts each player on his or her team scoops from the bowl. Although he taught Ventise how to make peach preserves, she is better at it than he is. She is also a better cook than he. He never misses an opportunity to sample whatever she is preparing, nor does he miss an opportunity to throw loving arms around her and kiss her face, her neck, her hands, or just hold her. He finds it amusing that the children mimic his actions towards him, towards their mother, and towards each other. He has just released Ventise from one of his spontaneous hugs, a skewed hug from behind, during which the round of her shoulders cupping hers, the round of his shoulders cupping hers, she leaned the side of her face into the round of his neck and nestled it there to breathe in and exhale the essence of the love he constantly exudes. Casually, he glances out the kitchen window and is gripped by the activity he is seeing coming up his pathway. He counts at least 4 teams of horses pulling varied forms of carriages. One is unquestionably his brother's. Another is a flatbed wagon, the type on which slaves are shackled and transported. Another looks like it belongs to the sheriff, and yet another, which appears to belong to someone who is in no way short of money. Instincts tell him it is not a friendly visit, forcing him to slam the wooden shutters in front of the glass pane and bolts them. As he reaches for his shotgun from above the fireplace, he orders Ventese, saying, "Lock up the other shutters, then bolt the door behind me." He reaches for a box of ammunition and freezes as though he could tell what she is thinking. "Not with you on the other side." And almost in a whisper, he tells her again, "Lock the door and see to the children." She is used to doing what he tells her, for the most part, anyhow, trusting him to deal with the issues of his world. With a heavy heart, she bolts the door and leans her body against it for a few moments. The children know something is very wrong. Running from the bedroom where they had been doing puzzles made of wooden pieces by Beruze. They reach for her as she reaches for them. It is indeed the sheriff's carriage. This gives Beruze a sense that at least the law is present. He sternly addresses his inquiry to the sheriff. What's all this about? I am here to make sure there is no trouble, while Blytis Roidin here collects his slaves. Beruze is not quite sure he correctly heard the obvious mistake the sheriff just made in his speech, and so he stumbles over his words in asking, what? The sheriff repeats himself more slowly to ensure clarity. I am here to make sure Blytis collects his slaves without any trouble from you. He looks at his brother, and he looks at Blytis, from whom he and his brother had bought the trio, and incredulously he thinks to himself, surely they're not in cahoots, not together. Sheriff, you're making you're not making any sense. What do you mean you're here to make sure he collects his slaves? Any slaves here were bought fair and square. Yep, they were sold fair and square too, answers the sheriff. He looks at his brother, who is now more than willing to explain. When you didn't show up in court on Friday, the judge granted me sole authority to sell them, all three of them. I have the order right here, fanning what is obviously a court document. Blytis here purchased them for a fair price. Your share of the profit is assured. Yep, Blytis chimes in. I have already secured a buyer for them. Now Beruze is completely baffled and angry. What do you mean, court? Sold? What? What is really going on? It is the sheriff who pieces the puzzle together for Beruze. Well, Beruze, like everyone else, when you get an order to attend court, you must. Not attending is not an option. When you didn't show up for court regarding ownership of the slaves, the judge simply ruled in your brother's favor, while, of course, taking your interest into consideration. The order is binding. It is clear-cut. Your brother legally sold the slaves that you previously jointly owned. Beruze knows not how Brondez maneuvered this blindside. Brondez, you son of a bitch, but he knows they are not taking his family from him. He raises a shotgun at Brondez and fires. The quick response of the deputy he had not noticed side up beside him sends the shot astray. Now the sheriff draws on him, but does not fire, since the deputy, a man much larger than Beruze, has both Beruze and his weapon under control. Fist fighting it out is his only visible Let me read that again. Fist fighting it out is his only viable option in his sudden deafness to the sheriff's commands. Stop resisting. You're under arrest for attempted murder. The shotgun now secured in the sheriff's hand. Beruze thought briefly. Fights the deputy like a wounded lion to get at Brondez. In his fury and auditory exclusion, he does not hear that he is under arrest for attempted murder. Only now that he is in shackles and is being stuffed into the paddy wagon is he able to remember the use of his words, making sure he conveys clearly to the sheriff what he knows the situation to be. Sheriff, it's a ruse. It's a lie. It's a lie, I tell ya. It's a subterfuge. It's a subterfuge. In willing the safety of his family, he peers at the door to his dwelling. It is opening. Ventise, with both children in her arms, is coming, resolved in her slow but steady walk. Now he turns his vocals to her. What are you doing? Get back in the house. Get the children back in the house. Now! Now! A gun butt to the head. Boop! Silences him. Cold. And we will leave it there for now and pick up at chapter 11 at a later time. Chapter 11 is titled Help from Another Sphere. If you've enjoyed your time with me, I ask that you like, share, and subscribe. And I wish you Barak and Shalom.